We live. All right, what's up, everybody? Couldn't get my mic to hook up, so all taken care of. What's up, Pennsylvania Plowboy? Happy Halloween. Short stories by Kate already chipping in. $2 super chat. Thank you so much. We got a 5 chat goal tonight. So if we hit 5 super chats, where if you click on the top corner of the live chat, you'll see a goal. And if we get 5 chats, then I'll do 5 extra stories. So don't have to. We're going to do 10 stories. But if you want 5 more, kick into the super chats and we'll have a good time. All right. Let's see. Anybody do anything fun for Halloween? Anybody have any kids taking them out? Let me adjust the desk here. Ooh. All right. Actually, there's a lot of scary stories from the Old West. I think it's kind of an overlooked genre. I'll put in a little time on the thumbnail too. You see the Headless Horseman thumbnail? I thought that was cool. Patting myself on the back. Own yet. Good to see you, user. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. So yeah, I was saying Old West scary stories are surprisingly easy to find. So these are the 10 that I picked. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of strong opinions as to which 10 you would like to see. So hop in the live chat and let me know where I went wrong. This is another story, not for another time, though. Absolutely. Father and son fishing. Good to see you. All right. So we're just going to kind of jump right into it. It's a relatively casual affair. We're just going to have a good time. And we'll cover 10 stories, and we're going to cover a little bit of this really campy, cool movie that I didn't even know exists. I don't think a lot of people know exists. Billy the Kid versus Dracula. It's a 1966 movie. Says John Carradine's classic horror movie, which, hey, I didn't know about that. So we'll be covering all that and 5 bonus stories if you guys want to hit the super chats. And yeah, without further ado, we'll jump into it. These are not necessarily in any order. I just kind of wrote them down in the order I thought of them. So here we go. First story, the Bloody Benders, because a lot of these, we don't know if they're real or not, right? We do know the Bloody Bender murders were real. We just don't know much about the people. So if you don't know the Bloody Benders, we done an episode on them probably 2 years ago by now. And they're just a super creepy story. So go check out the episode for sure, but we'll give you a breakdown here. They're a small family out of, where is it? The Osage Trail. So there's this wagon trail that goes through Kansas, and they are in Labette County, Kansas. So this is 1871-73. Everybody that is fought in the Civil War is heading out west now. Everybody's tired of it back east. They're heading out west. And along these trails, people would set up shop a lot of times. It would just be one house that sold apples and whatever, sundries, right? Foodstuffs, coffee, cigarettes, stuff, tobacco more than cigarettes, but stuff like that you would want along the trail. So they're like a what do you call it? Bucky's or QT is what I was thinking of. That's what's big here. Valero, whatever, Wawa, right? Insert your local store here. But people stop off there. So it's not totally unusual that you have this family house right on the roadway and that people would stop there for dinner. So that's what the Benders set up, this kind of bed and breakfast / general store. But people started disappearing, and it's slowly enough, and there's few enough people where it wasn't really noticed for a while. There's believed to be over, I think, like 3 years, dozens of people have gone missing. I would say it's probably in the 20 range that really were taken out by the Benders, but that's a lot of people. So the Benders are 4 people that, if you read different iterations, they're always referred to as Ma Bender and Pa Bender and Kate Bender, and I forget the boy's name, but they're all a bunch of weirdos. But it's portrayed at first to the townspeople that this is a mother and father, and then their son and daughter. The dad only speaks German. He's a real gruff guy. The mom is not a whole lot more peaceable. The brother is known as just this, the kid that sits in the corner and, I don't know, starts fires, like that kid. He's but grown up, right? super weird guy. None of the townsfolk liked any of those three. They really liked Kate Bender. She was just supposedly really pretty, really popular, really charming and charismatic. So she was kind of the reason people didn't necessarily suspect the Benders for a while. She was like their public mouthpiece. So they're not real popular with the town folk, but people liked Kate enough where they were kind of allowed to let be, right? But people start disappearing. Looks like their modus or their MO, right, is invite travelers in. You say, like, hey, come in, we'll give you some dinner. And when the travelers come in, what they see is this covering to a wagon, like the canvas tarp that goes over to a wagon. If you really think about this, it's super creepy. But at the time, it would have been a pretty common thing to see. This big wagon thing, this big wagon canvas is covering the Bender's personal side of the house. So everything on this side of the house is the bed and breakfast and the general store. So you see this table, and then there's a bunch of they had an apple orchard, so there's a bunch of apples stacked up, flour, coffee, stuff like that, kind of in this little uh, kiosk in the corner. And so you're like, okay, well, I'll come have dinner with you guys. Maybe stay the night. You can get a bed there, which is like something that's going to be a really welcome thing when you've been on the trail and you're in the middle of Kansas. There's nothing out there. So this is like sounding like a pretty good deal, right? But time after time, these people would sit down and Paw Bender would go behind the curtain. So you're sitting there and going like, oh, the meal looks nice, but I wonder where Paw Bender went. And they're going, oh, he'll be right here. He's just washing his weird little German hands or something, right? And you sit down, they're served their food, and then as soon as they take or they're about to take their first bite, wham, a sledgehammer comes from behind the canvas wagon cover, and they take the guy out. They take the person out. There's, I think, several. It's kind of a uh, uh, what would you call that? Intramural experience where there's like men and women that they took out, and so you're sitting there, wham, get hit in the head. Usually that takes them out, but I think it was Kate, of course, right, even creepier, who comes in, finishes them off with a knife, right, like kosher style. Um, so then the body is gotten rid of. They dump it underneath the floorboards. They take all the valuables. The person disappears, and life carries on. And this happens time and time and time again, where eventually, over the years, people start to get suspicious. Then in March 1873, a bunch of bodies are disturbed. The townspeople find the homestead. They go out there. They're like, this is creepy enough. We're going to go see what's going on. They come out there. Nobody's there. Everybody is gone. There's a bunch of disturbed ground, and they find a bunch of bodies. So obviously, super weird situation, but everybody disappears after that. Like all these stories go floating around about people who had weird interactions, and the word goes around that actually Kate and the her ostensibly her brother were actually married. And then, oh no, actually they were brother and sister, but they're, or maybe they're cousins. But then it's like, well, they are brother and sister, and then they're still married, which adds to the weirdness even more. Either way, none of them are ever seen again. There's some like apocryphal sightings in Denver, I think, and Santa Fe, New Mexico, where they say, oh, we think we saw Kate Bender. But back in the day, it's basically impossible to tell. So all these people disappeared. And then when the family finally got caught, when wind finally came to the town of what's going on, this kind of familial John Wayne Gacy situation, right? With all these bodies under the floorboards, town comes out there, family is gone. It'd make a great movie. I thought it made a great episode. So go check it out if you haven't seen it yet and research it more. It's a super creepy story that is kind of often overlooked. I think we want to see the Old West through this prism of conflict. We want to see, oh, this battle and that certainly happened. But there's a lot of just straight up weird stuff, spooky stuff, macabre stuff that happened separate of any kind of geopolitical or national conflict, right? Which actually, I didn't put this in the list, but some of the creepiest stories that you hear are from mountain men, and it'll just be in a little caveat in their journal, and it happens several times. Kit Carson, I think James Beckworth, Jedediah Smith, all have little tiny mentions of, yeah, we're out at night, or it's dusk, and we're looking at the woods from camp, And then we just heard this like, wow, or some crazy noise, right? And they're with their native guide. Usually 9 times out of 10, they have a native guide with them. A lot of times they're from the area. So they look at this guy like you would, right? Like, what if you're with your buddy and he lives in this national park, or he lives right next to it. And then you're visiting the national park and you hear this scream. You would expect that when you look to your buddy and you ask, what was that? They're going to be able to explain it. But time and time again, the native guides would be like, I don't know, bro. Like, I don't know what that was. I'm as freaked out as you. To me, that's that really would, like, obviously that would keep you up at night, but no, that really viscerally shakes me, just kind of the thought of that. And there's a lot of those. They just don't make like one cohesive story. There's a lot of them. It's creepy. Okay. On to, there we go. On to number 2, Alfred Packer. You'd be tempted to say Alfred Packer, and it's a little bit of a contentious issue, but the records say Alfred. I believe he referred to himself as Alfred. It can be probably explained as this kind of colloquial frontier adaptation, right? Where it's like a lot of names happen like that, where they kind of, the way you would pronounce it would be Alfred. The way you would hear it spoken in day-to-day life, you would say Alfred, but it's probably spelled Alfred. Anyways, I digress. He's a strange guy, but he was part of the big Pikes Peak gold rush that happened in 1874. So the San Juan Mountains were just the hot spot. This is kind of the new California, right? There were a couple new Californias after the 1849 gold rush. This is one of them where everyone thinks, especially after the Civil War, we're going to get out of here. We're going to head west. We're going to make our fortune. We're going to call it good, right? We've had enough of this conflict. Alfred, I got to look at my notes. I don't know if he was a veteran or not. I don't think he was a veteran. I didn't have time to dive super far into these because I'm writing like 3 episodes, but I don't believe he was a veteran. If he was, someone can correct me in the chat. But he was looking for gold. And usually you would join up, especially bachelors. Like, they would join up with 4 or 5 guys and move from one site to the next. It's just a safer way to travel. And you might know somebody that knows somebody, and they can get you a job while you're, waiting to find your next mining site, et cetera, et cetera. So he heads with this group, 4 or 5 guys, to Leadville, Colorado. They're on their way there. It's in the wintertime, and they get stuck out in the snow. And it's a very like Donner-esque situation, Donner Party-esque situation, where there's no getting out. Like, they're snowed in completely. You can see the sites today where a lot of these people were stuck. You can see Donner Pass. You can see where Alfred and his buddies were trapped, and it's like you can't even get in and out of there today. So there's no getting out. You're stuck. There's nothing to hunt. There's nothing to eat. I think maybe the worst part of it is this incessant. There's no music to play. There's no books to read. So it's this incessant silence, and then you're hungry, and you're more and more hungry, and everyone around you is hungry. No one's in a good mood. No one is talkative, and you realize there's no solution to the situation that you're in right now. So this is a situation that they're in. And the prevailing theory is that because, well, what Alfred was accused of is because he's the only man that comes back, something sketchy happened out there. And he says, no, he was actually just attacked. He managed to survive his attack, but the other 4 guys just died of natural causes, right? Died from the elements. And oh yeah, on the Pet Detective's Adventure, it says no YouTube when you're stuck out in the wilderness. No YouTube even. It was sparse times. But so Alfred Packer shows up at Leadville, and he's like, crazy story, guys. Like, the guys I'm with, they're all gone. One of them tried to attack me, shook that guy off, but unfortunately the other guys didn't make it. He had to eat a couple of them to survive. But nobody really believes him. He doesn't have the best reputation. Now, oh, that's right. He was discharged from the military. A lot of people think he was epileptic, which not that hard to believe. I could see that. He was just considered like a strange guy, and he would have these kind of fits, and that's hard to discern what that means in the historical record. But he wasn't fit for service. It's safe to say, right? So he's trying to find something he can do. He takes to mining for gold. Turns out he's not great at that. He is good at eating people, but that's not a great thing. So he's accused of actually, I don't know what I could say on YouTube, but deleting them, right? When people go back to the campsite in the spring, investigators go back, they find a charnel house of horrors where there's just like body. It's like Predator, right? Like when they go back and they find what Predator did to their guys, like that. If you've ever seen that movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, please do yourself a favor. Um, LOL, epileptic outbursts. Yeah, I mean, like it might have been a thing. I don't know, right? The guy was just he was just kind of out there. Uh, but people were like, yeah, this guy could definitely have eaten 4 people. So he gets tried. He actually, there's a hung jury, I believe, the first time, and he escapes, or I mean, like he isn't convicted. Then they retry him. He is convicted, and he escapes, and he goes all the way up to like Idaho, and they end up finding him. And you can see in the pictures, like, look, like I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead. He, may or may not, in fact, have done this. But like when you see the picture, you're like, I think that's a guy that would eat people, for sure. But he's brought back. He serves the remainder of his sentence, and then he's just kind of forever seen as a social pariah because it's like, we know what you did, man. And he denied it to the day he died. But certainly one of those stories that I think is, I could sum it up like that, right? But you have to read the longer version and the descriptions of the camp, which I can't even. The descriptions are so bad, I can't even get into them on. Let me tell you. There we go. I didn't realize it was like tilted up like that. I can't even get into them on YouTube because it'll censor me. We love YouTube, love it, love it. Just saying, we'll get censored for that. So yeah, that's one to look into for sure. I tried to write an episode on that once, but it was hard to say. Like, what are you going to say? Alfred Packer versus the people, right? And then it's like, well, it's hard to make that exciting all the way through if we're going to have like 18 minutes of him just chomping down on people, right? But it's a good story. Highly encourage you to go read into it yourself. Okay. And next we're going to go on the same theme. I got to find it in my notes here. Scrolling through. Oh, it's in here somewhere. We'll just keep it in the same order that I have. Okay. Next up in our lineup, we have El Muerto, the Headless Horseman of South Texas. So not a lot of people know about this outside of Texas. Not a lot of people know about it inside of Texas, but it's a real thing. One of those things that's, probably a legend that's spread based on a half truth that kind of came to life, right? So the legend is that a Mexican bandit named Vidal had been captured by the Texas Rangers, and what they did was, took his head off. I think we can say that, and then like posted him up with like took some branches and put them underneath his coat like that, and then posted him up on his horse and tied him to his horse, and then let the horse run around as like a warning, like, don't be out here being a bandit or the Texas Rangers will get you. So I don't know about the veracity of that, because if you've ever been to South Texas, it's just big, wide open spaces. So it'd be like, I don't know, like buying a billboard in the middle of nowhere, right? Like no one's going to see what you're trying to advertise. So just uh, going through all the trouble to decapitate this guy and then rig this like prop system up where he stays upright and then just let the horse run free is like, you don't even know if anybody's going to see it. So I don't really think that part was real. But did the Texas Rangers do things like this? Yeah, for sure. Supposedly Bigfoot Wallace was involved. I don't think he was involved. Like, I don't think this happened, right? But I could see him being the genesis of the story, kind of like telling campfire stories. And something like this probably happened, but it metastasizes, right, from the truth. They probably did catch a guy, probably was named Vidal, very well might have decapitated him. But did they rig this whole like special effects thing up? Probably not. But the story has continued, whether its roots are in fact or fiction. So it's said, on late nights, and if you're out in it seems like it's like the Texas borderlands, like especially out in the desert in West Texas, you'll see this guy riding a horse. It's the same take as Ichabod Crane, right? You see a guy, you think there's a guy, he's riding a horse. It's at night. That's kind of strange. And then you think the guy's got no head. That's very strange. And then you kind of carry on with your night, but still pretty spooky. And actually, A couple of our stories tonight are going to be based in Seguin, which is where our main offices are located. Um, it was kind of the reason we started the channel because there's just so much history there. It's one of the oldest towns in Texas, but because there's so much history there, they'll tell you virtually everything is haunted. Like everything on the town square, they'll say, "Oh, that's haunted. Oh, that's haunted. Oh, that's haunted." The town park is a bunch of trees that have been there for before the town existed, and you'll find there's a iron ring about I'm about 6'4", just kidding, I'm like 5'10", so about here on me, right? An iron ring where Jack Hayes and a number of other rangers would like take prisoners and beat them for a number of offenses, right? But it all happened like right there. There's coffee shops and the Burnt Bean Barbecue. It's a Michelin star barbecue. It's 100 feet, maybe 200 feet away from where the tree is, and everything is just considered haunted. So a ton of history there, and I'm sure every small Texas town is like that. But I would say like Seguin has an unusual amount of hauntings, and they all seem to stem from the Magnolia Hotel, which is our next subject here. And I lived, I don't know, 3 blocks away from the Magnolia Hotel. Right, it's been refurbished. It's a beautiful building now. It started as this kind of Adobe, uh, probably three bedroom house that Jack Hayes's father-in-law built, and then that's been built upon into this 2-story house, which is kind of takes up the corner that it's on Crockett Street in Seguin. But Jack Hayes got married there. It still has a uh, basement that they dug out where they could hide from Comanche attacks. And then over the years, it just kind of became it's a well-known landmark. If you were coming through town, you'd stay at the Magnolias Hotel. There's an inordinate amount of axe killings there, an inordinate amount of crime that happened there. The first or the proprietor at the time, the guy who was running the bed and breakfast, it was like an old West hotel, right? You could get this kind of communal meal. You could get a bed and you could stay there. So, ne'er-do-wells and upright citizens alike could come through and stay. And somebody came through and axed the owner of the place in, I think, the 1870s. So that's one. I think there was another one. There definitely was another one in the town, like where the town square is now. So that's like 3 within a 100-yard radius. That's a lot. That's a lot. I don't know what the national average is. That's a lot, right? Then there was a guy who rode to San Marcos, which is 30 miles away, right? Uh, Committed a murder there, then rode back, tried to stay at the Magnolia Hotel like nothing happened, and then they caught him, and I believe they hung him in the same town square, something like that, right? There's a lot of hangings in the town squares, right, as well. And also, it's where they kept the prisoners before they were executed, so they can kind of look out from the windows where everything is still the same as it was in the 1870s. Right now, they can look out through the windows and see the tree they were going to be hung at, right? Which sucks. So a lot of bad stuff happened there. A lot of good stuff happened. It's a very popular bed and breakfast now, but I haven't visited because it's like I got enough problems, right? Like I don't know what's there. I don't need anything sticking to me. Like I just watched online. But there's a really good Ghost Hunters episode if you want to see all the creepy stuff that happens there. Hey, Space Cowboy, happy anniversary, man. Didn't know if you'd make it. Everybody wish Space Cowboy a happy 15th anniversary, right? Happy anniversary. Good to have you here. Okay. So the Magnolia Hotel is built in the 1840s, right? Like I said, the guy that built it was Jack Hayes's father-in-law. He was kind of the man about town in Seguin. I guess kind of like I summarized that. But yeah, it seemed like everything bad that happened in Seguin happened in or around the Magnolia Hotel. And now it's like a bit of a landmark. And it's like, I don't know, 200 yards from a sushi place. It's a quarter mile from the HEB. So it's odd when you know everything that's happened there to drive by it so frequently, and it looks rather innocuous now. It's a beautiful building now, but everything that happened there and all the things that are supposed to still be happening there. It's like, wow, it's just kind of sitting there while life spins around it, right? Okay, so on to our next one here. We've got a little bit of cryptid stuff. So we had the Headless Horseman, right? And now we'll have Teddy Roosevelt hunting Bigfoot. So this is like, you could think of this like I don't know. This is in a presidential memoir. He wrote one specifically on hunting in, let me look the year up here, 1893. So it's just after or just before the Rough Riders era, right? He's already a renowned guy. He's, famous for hunting already. So he says uh, in this book that he was out hunting and I think he says he saw Bigfoot, right? Like I said, I ran through like 10 of these already. So now it's kind of getting scrambled in my head. So the story is related through a guy named Bowman. And he says he was out hunting in the Montana wilderness. And Roosevelt was with him, and he says he saw a curious but uncertain story, or he heard a curious but uncertain story lending credibility to the existence of Bigfoot. So he says he was out hunting and came across this like big, hairy, wild man and chose not to shoot it. They exercised mercy on it, right? But this is a documented sighting that you would see. I was trying to think of an equivalent. It would be like if Trump had a book on golf and then like said he saw Bigfoot in it, or put any president here, right? And then in their memoir, they just kind of casually mentioned seeing Bigfoot. People would glom onto that, right? Didn't Clinton write a memoir in the 90s where he just like briefly mentioned UFOs? And it's like, that's gonna be, you can mention it as briefly as you want, but the rest of your book is now gonna fall by the wayside because people are gonna want to know about Bigfoot or the UFOs, right? And in kind of researching this, if you want to research the Teddy Roosevelt Bigfoot story, you're gonna find it's super popular in Squatcher circles. Now, Squatchers are a whole subculture of people who have dedicate lots of time to finding Bigfoot. Do not play with these people. They mean business. Don't talk to them like Bigfoot may or may not be real. You have to treat it like it's a real thing, or it's going to be a whole issue, right? And I mean, listen, it might be a real thing, right? I don't know. If you've ever been to the Pacific Northwest, if you've ever been to Northern California, it's even kind of supposed to be a thing here in Texas. If you've ever been to Eastern Texas, could be real, right? But that's a lot of time to put into it. I don't really see like why we're doing that, but I'm glad someone's out there taking care of it, and everybody needs a hobby, right? But these guys really love to tell the Teddy Roosevelt story. It adds a lot of credence to their claims. So you will be dealing with an unusual amount of squatchers if you look further into this, but I still encourage you to. They're good people and it's entertaining stories. Okay, on to our next one. This is I included a couple ones that are just gross in here, right? But if you've ever heard the story of Blackjack Ketchum, you'll know where I'm going with this. So Thomas Blackjack Ketchum, he was a Texas outlaw and a train robber, was active in the 1890s. He was part of the Hole in the Wall gang. So he's a known outlaw. He ends up getting captured and in Folsom, New Mexico. He's trying to rob a train, right? He gets shot during the robbery, apprehended. He's wounded severely enough that they have to amputate the arm. But he didn't actually rob the train, right? He tried, but didn't actually rob the train. So he's arrested on charges of attempted train robbery. But they say attempting is good enough, man. We've had enough of you. You've been in trouble for everything. So it's the gallows for you. Okay. So he's waiting around for them to build the gallows. Like, this sucks, So he's going to eat his feelings, as you might say today. So he's just chomping down like everything they bring him. He's eating it and asking for seconds. Chomp, chomp, chomp. He puts on, I don't know, like 50 pounds. But the whole time, the people that are the sheriff who's building the gallows, they're not really taking this into account. They're just going like, look at this guy. He's eating all of our food. So when they tie the knot and do all the weird, creepy calculations that you have to do for that, they only take into account the weight that he came into the jail on, and they don't take into account that, you're going to be lopsided. So they lead him up there, and he's kind of like, guys, this is ridiculous. Like attempted train robbery. There was never anyone hung before or after for attempted train robbery. And this happened in 1901. So you're like a decade and a half from World War I. You're like, what, 5 years away from the Wright brothers' flight? You're in the 20th century, and they're still just like, nah, we got to hang this one-armed guy for attempted train robbery. So they carry it out, right? He's marched to the top of the gallows, gives his last words. I'm sure they were enthralling. We don't know what they were. Then they hang him, right? But when they do that, he's all lopsided and he's 50 pounds heavier. So it just pops his little outlaw head clean off, right? All these people, there's nothing to do in New Mexico. There's nothing to do now. No offense, but really, there's not. So people just came out and they're out there to watch the hanging. It's already kind of twisted that you bring the family to watch that, but it really must have kind of ruined a couple of people's dinners that the guy's head just pops clean off, right? So that's what he's known for, though. It was in Clayton, New Mexico. Is why, you got a lot of small old west towns stuck in my head, and they just kind of go around like a ninja blender. Yeah, he's the only person in U.S. history executed for attempted train robbery. They just really didn't like him. They didn't like him at all. He was a dyed-in-the-wool SOB. Okay, and speaking of, I kind of grouped the criminals together here. All right, so Blackjack Ketchum was like a guy that just like probably shouldn't have been hung. Was a bit of a ne'er-do-well, right? Jim Miller was a straight up psychopath. Like he was known as Deacon Jim because he was diligent about attending church. He dressed really well. He spoke really well. But this guy was a straight up assassin. He was born in 1866. He was known for wearing a black frock coat and had little metal plates in it to stop him getting shot, which he got shot at all the time. We did an episode on him too, one of our first episodes. So yeah, go check that out. Deacon Jim Miller. It was a really creepy, I use that word a lot, but it's Halloween, right? So it was a really creepy story where he knows he's going to get hung and he almost just doesn't even seem to care. He's just kind of resigned to it. And he ends up kind of going with them and making fun of the other guys that are going to get hung because they're scared. But just a total sociopath. He's suspected in the murders of his grandparents, I think his aunt and uncle, other lawmen, rival organized crime members in the area, possibly Pat Garrett, the guy who killed Billy the Kid. He's just known for decades to just go around. He's a gun for hire, right? It was in Evant, which is, I'm in Austin, so probably 2 hours north of Austin. He killed his grandparents, and they were kind of just like, all right, well, that didn't work out. So then they sent him to live with, I think, his aunt and uncle. And the whole time he's just sitting there, the 19th century version of like rocking back and forth with like, you guys hear that? Somebody going crazy with a motorcycle. Yeah, the 19th century version of like rocking back and forth with a butcher knife in the corner, right? Like this isn't going to end well. He ends up, I think, being known as kind of someone that was, I'm trying to think of like YouTube friendly words, known to be an assassin for his own personal gain. So he started to be hired out as an assassin for other people. And over the years, he kills all these people. Finally, in Ada, Oklahoma in 1909. So it's another one that happened not that long ago, like at least when our great grandparents were alive. There was a deputy there named Gus Bobbitt. He ends up taking Gus Bobbitt out. That's when the town is like, bro, you can't kill our deputies. We've had enough of this. We're taking you to this barn. We're going to hang you. There's a couple other guys with him. So they march him through this field to this barn. It's, it's a total vigilante thing, but they've just had it because he's kind of like a Teflon Don of the Old West. Like they can never get anything. He was a smart guy. And so he would cover his tracks really well. But everybody knows this is the guy who's out there running wild, right? So they're like, we're not even going to give this a chance to go to trial. They march him into the barn. He asks to put on his black hat so he can be hung in that. And they're like, no dice. So he says, fine. And they're, they're getting everything set up and they put him on boxes. And he just says like, I want it known for the record that I've killed 50 men. And if you've ever seen King of the Hill, very much like Cotton Hill, right? It's like his tagline. I started thinking like, I wonder if Mike Judge got that saying from Jim Miller. But anyways, those are his last words. He jumps off the box. Everyone's done, right? That's the end of old Jim Miller. But there's a really intense picture where they show all of them hanging. And there's like a couple of cows just eating, just hanging out because they're just like, what am I going to do, right? But they're actually in a barn. And it's very evocative of the Old West. And it's just kind of a reminder that these weren't movie sets. This was just like how things happen. They were like, we've had enough of this guy. We're taking him to the barn. We're hanging him. That's it. 50 men. Whoa, from Pets Detectives. Yeah, that's a lot of guys. And for you want your last words to be a reminder that you did that. I think the guy was just uh, maybe possessed or something, or just a complete sociopath. Like he would be diagnosed with something today. But you can even look at his eyes. He's got shark eyes. There's something not right there. Let's see. Teddy Roosevelt and Bigfoot, best Halloween storyline ever. Absolutely. And you see, like, I don't know if Bigfoot exists, but there's a lot of mountain man stories that talk about, uh, I saw something big and hairy. But I think usually they thought it was a bear and just kind of went on with their day. Let's see. All right, so we'll hop back over to the list here. Good to see everybody in chat, man. Glad to have everybody here. Okay, our next thing, another bit of native legend this time. The Wendigo. It's all over. It's like Bigfoot, where every area seems to have their own version of it. One prominent one is the Navajo, and I think it kind of actually comes from the Algonquin. But the basics of it are the same. They'll see this large figure. A lot of times, it's like the size of an elk. It's kind of uh, analogized to that a lot of times. It's like the size of an elk. It'll have a humanoid head. I sound like Art Bell, but it's true. It'll have like this human-like head. There'll be no skin on it, or there'll be skin kind of falling all off of it. The head is described as in different shapes. There'll sometimes be eyes, sometimes no eyes, sometimes antlers, sometimes no antlers. But usually it's something that's seen as spiritually very, very dangerous, something that if you interact with it, it can stick to you. It's physically very dangerous. It can attack you. And it's usually seen as like a harbinger of doom. It's like, well, something bad is going to happen if you have an encounter with this thing. And it's one of those where it's like, I don't really believe that. But there's a lot of these stories, and there's a lot of them that come from one end of the continent to the other, and they're seeing the same thing. So it's a very strange thing, certainly. And I don't want to be one of those guys that says, "Oh, I don't believe in it," and then I see it. So if I do see one, we'll do another live stream on it. How's that? Okay, next on the list here. And I was going to do a couple of accounts. There's not a lot of personal accounts from the 19th century that are written down, but there's a lot of word of mouth native accounts that come down where it's like, I was out getting water. I was out on a hunt. I saw this thing. And then, my uncle died 2 weeks later. And they're always the accounts of them. I think it's another thing like Bigfoot where we go, oh, it's a big, tall ape man. But it's like, if you think about that in minute detail and granular detail, it's like, that's a very, very scary thing to see. And that'd be, it's disturbing. It's like they describe it as like flesh kind of dripping off of it. They describe the odor, this kind of rotting stink with this. It's always this added with this kind of indescribable overtone. It just kind of adds to the eeriness of it. I think a lot of times they were used as ways to keep people from going into certain areas, but it's there's enough truth to that where I won't be venturing into any dark forests anytime soon. We'll put it that way. Okay, rolling through these here. You guys think the Wendigo is real? You think Bigfoot is real? Let me know in the chat. Any fans of Art Bell? The OG, right? We have Alex Jones now. We have all these podcasters that are talking about conspiracies and stuff, but Art Bell was the OG. And you would get people that called in there and it was just like, whatever. Like, my puppy works for the federal government. He's spying on me. And you're just like, this guy believes it. Great show. Okay. Scrolling through the list here. I had to close out the window, so got out of place. Okay. The Red Ghost of Arizona. Another creepy one. I didn't know about this one until I started looking them up. This has, again, there's some root in truth here. So the Red Ghost of Arizona, it started in 1880s in the Eagle Creek area, where people started reporting that these giant creatures would come out of nowhere and stomp their tents, raise havoc in their tiny little towns and then leave. They disappear. And they'd say, oh, they're big and they're red. They have a human skeleton tied to the top of them. And then they have, again, this kind of concept of flesh stripping off of them. People didn't know what they were. And actually, it could be true because in the 1880s, in the late 19th century, the U.S. Army tried to introduce this herd of camels to the Southwest desert, specifically in Arizona. So there was basically feral herd. I believe there might still be of well, no, I don't think there is anymore, but people see these and these phantom sightings happen all the time. So they go, that might be a camel. But it's reported as like red and sunburned, and there's a skeleton on top of it because apparently the guy somehow died, right? And couldn't get off the camel. So the camel is just kind of wandering around with this gross skeletal backpack, hauling this guy around for all eternity. And people still claim that they see him. So it could have been real. I think they were shooting them until the 1890s. Is that right? They were shooting them for a while because people knew what camels were, but this kind of, I think they kind of took what a real camel would look like and started adding to it for local legend. And it eventually became the red ghost of Arizona. And I'm not going out in Arizona at anytime soon at night. It's damn near creepy anywhere you go in this country at night. Right? Am I wrong? Let's see. Checking the chat real quick. Pennsylvania Plowboy says they haven't proven they don't exist. That's a fine point. You an Art Bell fan? Any trail cam video images of Bigfoot, big feet? Not that I know of, right? But if you ask the Squatchers, there's plenty. It just kind of depends on your perspective. They'll have a lot of sounds. They have a lot of sound recordings. There's this thing called the Sierra Camp recording, or the Sierra Camp sounds, which is a couple hunters, I think in the 60s, relatively recently, that were in a hunting camp in the Sierras in California. And they record I don't think they knew at the time. Got coffee. There we go. What are you going to do? They didn't know at the time what it was. And so they hear all these screams like, out in the woods, and they record it and they bring it back. And then, of course, people are like, well, that's a Bigfoot. And they're going, well, we don't know what it is. So maybe. And then there's a Patterson Gimlin film, which happened in Northern California, which I think the guy said, one of them said it, that was like a deathbed confession that it wasn't him. If you get into it with the Squatchers on that, you're going to have a bad time. Don't try. They will have anything that you have an objection to. Oh, it was a guy in a suit. No, it wasn't a guy in a suit. That the skin doesn't fold right. If you say whatever other thing it could be, right? They've got an answer for everything. Just leave it alone. They'll tell you that they have film. Just get yourself another beer and carry on with your night, right? Stories by Kate says, I grew up listening to Art Bell going to sleep. You must have had some unique dreams. I saw a Black Panther in Pennsylvania. Yeah, still can't believe it. They're trying to say that there are no Black Panthers in Texas, and there are so many sightings of them. Like the mountain lion is they're all kind of the same, right? The Black Panther is just like a black version of a mountain lion, right? Basically. But those are making a comeback in Texas. The black bear is, and they've got tons of sightings of Black Panthers, which are native here, which a lot of these, if you read old accounts, panthers, wolves, bears, elk, bison went all over the country. There were bison in Pennsylvania. There were elk in Texas. There were antelope in California. So like, it's not crazy that these things would exist there again. Except in California, they shot that last grizzly and just put him right on the flag. There ain't no grizzlies there anymore. There might be grizzlies in Colorado, though. That's a bit of a contentious issue. There's actually a club, the BFRO. Yes, the Bigfoot Research Organization. There's a museum in Santa Cruz where you can go, and the guy that guy is about it. He's about the life. And he will tell you everything that could ever have to do with Bigfoot. Okay. On to our next local legend here. We've got a couple more left. La Llorona. I heard a guy say La Llorona, and I was like, bro, you're not helping us. Not that my pronunciation is great, but La Llorona. So it's the weeping woman of it's mostly northern Mexico and like Arizona, Texas, New Mexico here. It's supposed to be a woman who drowned, and usually you'll see it around rivers like the Rio Grande. It's really prevalent because it's a way for them to keep for parents to keep their kids away from the river. But again, different origin stories, all equally eerie. But usually it's a local woman who drowned, and then you'll see her still like soaking wet, still in the dress that she drowned in, and she'll come try to pull you into the river. Or again, it can be like a harbinger of bad things to come. But it's a really prevalent legend. And again, one of those where like you hear it in short form, and yeah, that's pretty creepy. But if you really think about this hollow-eyed woman in a soaking wet dress, like with her arms stretched out and coming and trying to get you, just appearing out of nowhere in the dark, it's pretty crazy, right? Like I'm an adult, and well, I'm not going anywhere near that river. Let's see here. That's that would be like in American culture, like I'm trying to think of an analogous one, but maybe like our Headless Horseman, right? Like it's just a well-known uh, part of the cultural fabric. It's just like their, uh, uh, it's a landmark for them. With cornerstone, that's the word I was looking for, of their scary story, part of their culture. All right, so down the list here, I get more articulate as I get tired. On the list here, on down the list, we have the Hell Dogs of El Dorado Canyon. This is from Nevada. You'd think there'd be more scary stories coming out of Nevada because it's kind of a scary place, anyways. A lot of people lose a lot of money there, but it's just big open deserts. The first people that crossed it, I always think like, you guys, I would just turn around. Like whatever's on the other side, it's not worth it. Okay, but this comes from El Dorado Canyon. It's a mine, and if there are legends to come out of the Old West, they are going to be coming out of mines. Like mines are the most haunted place usually. There's apparently a murder of a bunch of miners at the Tachit. Okay, it's a tough one, guys. Techatica mine in 1869. This could be for a number of reasons. It's one of those like you look into it, it can be for extortion, it could be over a gambling debt, it could be over a drunken night. There's a bunch of supposed causes to their murder. Either way, they're said to have been murdered, and I guess their like ghostly apparition is to appear as these black dogs with glowing eyes. And it's again, if you see them on a stormy night and they have glowing red eyes and their footprints apparently are like fire, like where they step, there's fire every little step, which is kind of badass. I can dig that. But if you see that, believe it or not, it's not a good thing. It's a harbinger. So I don't know what these people expect you to do. Like, it's not my fault. I look at it the first time. If I see it, okay, give me a chance to turn away. But if I look away and I don't look back, then I shouldn't have a harbinger of bad things to come. That's not a fair system. Okay. I understand the world's not fair, but there should be some kind of logic behind how we set this thing up, right? Give a person a chance to see it and then disengage. And then if you want to re-engage, that's when it's a sign of bad things, right? Let me know in the chat. Water babies are a creepy legend. Yeah, super creepy. It was hard to narrow these down to 10. Short stories by Kate. Pyramid Lake in Nevada is a very cool place. Yes, we're doing a Jack Hayes episode on that soon. He actually fought the Modoc there. He went to San Francisco from Texas to be part of the gold rush, became sheriff, the first sheriff of San Francisco. And they basically like a 80s hero or action movie. They sent people, they were having a war with the Modoc over by Pyramid Lake. And they sent a contingent over to San Francisco and they were like, Jack, we need you, dog. And he's like, all right, we'll do one last mission. And then they went over to Pyramid and, fought the Modoc. Okay, next one here is going to be, the Donner Party. So Louis Kesselberg is, to me, the most seminal or the most, that's what stands out in my mind when I think of the Donner Party, because he's one of the survivors. He's very much like Alfred Packer, in which people were like, listen, buddy, we know you ate a bunch of people. And he was like, I didn't eat anybody. But when they found him, he was found in the midst of this. I think people underestimate just how horrific the Donner Party was. When they found the Donners, it was like a butcher shop of people. There were like legs hanging up like hams. There were body parts stored in the snow. There was the smell of, it would smell, all right, this is really bad, right? But it would smell like pork. Like it would smell like pork being cooked, because that's the closest analogy that you would have to humans, right? At least culinarily. I'm really trying to watch how I say this. Um, so you have all this. Okay, I've set the kind of sensory scene for y'all, and then you see this guy whose eyes are just hollowed out. His eyes died before him. That's for sure. There's nothing there. He's stumbling around with a blanket on him. He's half naked, and you're just kind of like, "Hey, buddy, like, how's it going?" And he's like, "Not well." So they bring him back. I'm trying to like summarize all this, and YouTube friend, this makes it a pain in the ass to summarize it like that. Bad things happen to people of all ages, right? It was a wide ranging buffet of people of all ages, right? Really bad. They bring him back, and he's all shaken up, and his eyes are all bugged out the whole time. He goes to trial. He's just, getting beat up in the media like this. It's really no different than today. Like, you're going to take a beating in the media. He takes a beating in the media. He's acquitted, but he just has this thing stick to him his whole life, right? Like, he is the cannibal Kesselberg. Um, and it just ruined his life from then on out. And they don't have words to totally convey to our concept of what PTSD was, but everything from contemporary accounts says this was a guy who suffered from flashbacks, couldn't sleep, basically lived out his trauma on a day-to-day basis, and never really recovered. So just a deeply, deeply troubled man. I think often easily vilified. I don't necessarily want to go to dinner with him, but it definitely begs that question, like, well, what would you do? How far would you go? And this guy certainly went really far, went over the edge. And I think people don't fully understand the terrifying nature of what that would be day to day. You're stuck in the snow. There is no help coming again. And you're watching people expire day by day by day. There's nothing else to talk about. There's no TV to watch, and there's nothing else to eat. And you're going to have to do this day after day after day. And it's going to continually weigh on you spiritually. It's going to weigh on you physically. And I think for anyone that has any doubt of that and what that did, you can go look at pictures of Kesselberg right now. And that is a haunted man. And I think maybe to me, the most terrifying story in the Old West, because it wasn't a surprise attack. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't, an animal attack. It was day after day after day for months on end. And to me, like, that is just a horrifying prospect. And maybe it's because I grew up a couple hours from where the attack, or from where the Donners were stuck, and everything around there is called Donner now. It's Donner Pass. It's Donner this, Donner that. But it's really, when you think about it, you're like, maybe we should, pick something else, because it's a horrific story. It's certainly a testament to human survival, but one of those absolutely worth looking more into. It's hard to fit into our template of how we do our shows, because it's not really verses, it's not a battle, but I think it's more horrifying than most battles in the Old West, which is really saying something. That Under the Desperate Stars Above, I think, is the name of the preeminent Donner Party book. So definitely encourage you to check that out. So on to our terrifying list here. We're almost done. We're finishing up strong here. The Platte River Death Ship. I had never heard of this before. Apparently, it's kind of common knowledge on the Platte River. It's along the Platte River, specifically in Nebraska. It's been reported since the 1860s. People claim to see a spectral ship gliding through anytime there's fog on the river. People say, "Oh, I saw the Platte River Death Ship." It's very much like a frontier. What is that called? The ghost ship. Well, there's Oran Madang, and then what's the Anybody know the ghost ship that I'm talking about? I looked it up beforehand and now I'm blanking on it. But yeah, it's pretty common, like maritime lore, right? You'll see a ghost ship. It's crewed by ghosts, and they kind of just took this and superimposed it onto the 1860s frontier. But again, it's something where like, if you see that, something bad's going to happen. Is this a real thing? Probably not, right? It's probably born from 1,000 stories of 1,000 horrible things that happened along that river. People would drown, boats would overturn. It was a ferryway for large parts of the frontier. So you'd see, ships with large crews on it. Wasn't terribly uncommon. You would lose a whole crew, attacks, all kinds of terrible things have happened there. So it's, not unthinkable that you would kind of summarize all these stories and use this ghost ship to represent them and to caution people against being too careless on the river. The Mary Celeste, dude. Thank you, Space Cowboy. The Mary Celeste. There's that's the old one, and the Oran Madang is the new one where like in the middle of the Atlantic, they found this ship. It was abandoned, but like there was peanut butter sandwiches made and stuff, right? The radio was still working, and there was just nobody there. They don't know what happened. The the Flying Dutchman is the one I was looking for. The Flying Dutchman. Yes, that's it. Space Cowboy coming through huge. Yeah, lots of ghost ships are a really common thing, but um, they seem to, each generation seems to have their own. Oh, the Philadelphia experiment, yeah, where they made a whole ship disappear. This is World War II, right? And they're supposedly they like split dimensions, right? And there was guys like stuck in the floor. They like melded into the ship. Yeah, that was a crazy. And again, like one of those. Did that really happen? I don't know, but you put it past. You put it past the boys in charge. I don't know. I don't. Though I don't know. Being melded into a ship. That's a little tough to believe. I could barely get my DoorDash to arrive on time. I don't know if they could really make a ship go into a different dimension, but could be. All right, let's see. We're almost to the end now. Let's see what we got here. The Lost Camp of the Sierra Madres. That is Arizona, I believe, and northern Mexico. Again, if you're a prospector in the 19th century, it's like you're probably not going to find any gold, and you're probably going to have a ghost story named based on you, right? Let's see, the Sierra Madre mine is said to be haunted by ghosts of its miners, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me because it's like, I don't know, I wouldn't go haunt my job, you know what I mean? But they say they do. So there's lots of miners still going to work there even now. There's some evidence, there's some empirical evidence that this came from a group of miners who were killed in an Apache attack, which could be true, right? The Apache really didn't like miners. They know that's a sign of further incursion. So it wouldn't be wholly uncommon. And some versions have it being U.S. deserters from the Civil War who went south and started mines in northern Mexico. And there's a whole thing with that too about where the Confederate gold ended up after the war, that the Confederates were running gold across the country to Los Angeles. So that's a whole rabbit hole for you to dive into as well. I feel like there's everything I'm missing here. Got that. Jim Miller. Yeah, I guess we're kind of that's about the end of it, right? Oh, yeah. And we found this movie called Billy the Kid versus Dracula. Probably don't have time to do a full, yeah, it's already an hour in. But you can watch it for free on YouTube. So if you need something to do on Halloween night, highly recommend that. They got a lot of good movies for free on YouTube. It's campy. It's more dramatic than you would think it is, but a really good, fun Halloween watch. Also, Sleepy Hollow is on YouTube for free. So if you need a good Halloween movie, check that out too. That one I think is like legitimately highly underrated. Great movie. And maybe worth doing. I almost thought about doing a deep dive on that because there's a lot of American history stuck in that kind of goes overlooked. So maybe that's something we'll get to next Halloween. Let's see. All right, let me see if I have any extra ones here. See if there's any of the extra ones that we really need to cover before we get out of here. The Chupacabra. Everybody knows about the Chupacabra. You guys think the chupacabra is real? I think it's a mangy coyote, really. Have you ever seen a mangy coyote? You think like, well, that's not real. But every area down here in the Southwest, uh, has their own version of it. Costa Rica, the DR, the Dominican Republic, Mexico, all have their own version of it, and they're all very different. Like sometimes they're like a lizard, sometimes they're like I said, like this kind of dog thing. We're heading back to the chat here. Billy the Kid versus Dracula. The title sells it. It does. It does. That's an enticing title, especially in 1966. It's like, yeah, I'll go see that. Let's see. Helen Keller versus Night Wolves. Is that real, Space Cowboy? Helen Keller versus Night Wolves. That doesn't seem like a very like Helen Keller versus anybody. Doesn't seem very nice. All right, we'll run through the chat one more time here. You guys doing anything fun for Halloween? Let me know in the chat. What's your favorite Halloween candy? You know what? I saw a post from Josh at Wild West Extravaganza. Josh, if you're watching, what's up, man? But you said your favorite Halloween candy was dots. I don't even know what dots are. You guys know what dots are? Let's see, I would say I'm an almond joy guy. To me, that's the classiest of candies. You got the coconut, you got the chocolate. I can do Mounds. It's got dark chocolate. That's good. I drank a shit ton of bourbon last night. Right on, Mojo. I do know. All right. Well, what are dots? Are they like a fruit candy? I'm not even saying it's a bad choice. I'm just saying like dots. That wouldn't even reach my top 10 or my top 5. Whatever the kids have in their plastic pumpkin buckets. Yeah, do they have like organic stuff now? I don't know. I'm not on that scene. Oh, so it is real. Helen Keller versus the Space Wolves. All right, Helen Keller versus Space Wolves. Will offend everybody tonight. Go check it out. It's shaped like a cone, the dots are. Yeah, I'd say I'm an almond joy guy. I actually don't mind candy corn. Like everybody's got a major problem with it. I don't mind it. I went to school out in this little school in the country, right? So we used to have like this carnival because kids you're out in the country, you're not going to like walk door to door, right? So they'd all get together in the gym and they'd have all these games everywhere. I was a really fat little kid, but I had this like Rain Man ability with the cakewalk. Like they would have a big table with a bunch of cakes on it, and you do like musical chairs where like they play a song, you got to stop, and if you stop on a square and they draw number 10, and I'm on number 10, I win the cake. And I was just a phenom. I was a generational talent at that. I would go home with 10, 12 cakes, and just like candy just didn't even appeal to me at that point. It was like I'm not stepping over a dime. I'm not stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I would just eat those for a solid week. And my old man would steal a substantial amount of them too, which is fair. That's taught you about taxation, but it's Helen Keller versus the Night Wolves, huh? Space Cowboy, are you going to watch that on your anniversary night? You guys need like a romantic movie, right? You guys got married on Halloween too? That's a good one. That makes it easy to remember. Yep, the daddy tax. Absolutely. It's a good lesson growing up. All right. Yeah, dots are gummies, right? That's kind of what I thought. And again, it's a respectable choice. We love Josh. Just saying I didn't even know what it was. Like I'm a chocolate guy, I'm a coconut guy, I'm obviously a coffee guy. Trying to think what else. You guys like anything else? Am I leaving that out? But yeah, I'm more of a confectionery. I'm more of a pastry guy than a confectionery guy. You got to go big. Or novelty cupcakes when they put like the frosting on it and then they like put a little pumpkin on top of it. That's the best. It's a cake walking gift. Absolutely. Yes. You should have seen it. It was, how they talk about like, well, you should have seen Babe Ruth play, or like you should have seen Michael Jordan in his prime, or Tyson in the 80s. It's like that, but of cake walking. Space Cowboy says he's seen the Helen Keller movie 5 times. Damn, bro. Like, what is she going to do? Does she have like superpowers? How does that work? Space Cowboys watched it with his wife as a couple. Very nice. Very nice. That might be a good date idea. Anybody like what is your regional scary story? Anybody have any good ones? Like I said, I'm from about 90 minutes away from the Sierras. And I'll tell you right now, everything in the Sierras has a weird vibe. If you've ever watched David Paulides Missing 911, you can see this heat map of the entire country, and the missing people is like a red hot, uh, tiny area right over Yosemite. So many people go missing there. They don't know why. They're just gone. It's super creepy. And if you've ever been up there, you're just like, yeah, yeah, I have no doubt that people could just disappear here. Yeah. Okay. So 0 Point Zap says the Bender's canvas that they hung up in the to separate the rooms had a big blood stain on it. That's what they said. Like that's according to all accounts real. And they'd say, oh, it's because of we were slaughtering pigs or something. It's like it's kind of like Darwinism in action, right? It's just like whatever. I'm not a Darwin guy. I'm just saying like yeah, it is kind of played out there, right? Because it's like listen, if you see a blood-stained canvas sheet hanging up in any room anywhere, don't go in that room. Don't sit down for dinner. Don't stay there for the night. It didn't work out well. I don't know why you would think it would work out well. It's not for the pigs. It's never for the pigs. Don't stay there. Space Cowboys in Sparks, Nevada. Absolutely. You're right near the Sierras. And like anywhere in the peripheral, like I love the foothills. It's great around there, but you go deep in the Sierras, and I've always thought, like, man, this is weird. Let's see. Am I handing out candy tonight? I am not. I don't live in like a walkable place, so no kids coming by. Let's see. If I was handing out candy, I'd hand out almond joys. And any kid that complained, I'd call the cops. It's a profiling tool. Yosemite and Ukiah, California. Yeah, Ukiah is a scary place too. Anywhere in the redwoods, it's just like it's too dark here. These trees are too tall. If you're familiar with Kerry Stainer, he's from my hometown. That guy got kidnapped and then taken to Ukiah and eventually brought back. But his brother went into the Sierras and took a bunch of psychedelics and went crazy in Yosemite and then came back and became a terrible murderer. I don't know how many times I could say the M word in this stream, but we'll find out. Yeah. Like, so neither one of those places are conducive to great mental health, you know? See, Space Cowboy says the first week we moved here to Sparks, Nevada in January 2017, two fishermen went missing at Pyramid Lake and they've still never been found. 100%. That's so common. And when you live there, you'll just see like blips on the news, if at all. And then you'll go, that's weird. And then you see a heat map of it and you go, why are there so many missing people in this one spot? And they're not going missing like in the Grand Canyon. They're not going missing on the Great Plains. They're not going missing whatever in the Louisiana swamps. It's just in this one spot. It's just Yosemite itself. It's just like missing people central. And honestly, once I saw that heat map, I wasn't surprised at all. Let's see. Space Cowboy says he grew up around cornfields. I did too. They are creepy. They're necessary, but they're creepy. I ain't going in them. Let's see. Mojo says he's never going there. Me neither, brother. What do you guys think? What do you think is the creepiest area of the country? Where would you least like to get stuck alone? I gotta tell you, mine's probably Northern California. And I'm from Northern California, and I love Northern California. Maybe the most beautiful area in the country, but I don't want to be stuck there alone. Let's see. Anybody else hit me with their favorite candies? Or what are you guys passing out tonight? Oh, Mojo is talking about the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases. A fantastic rabbit hole. Just give that a quick Google. You will have a fun weekend. Pet Detective says cornfields are scary and so are clowns. Yes, clowns are very scary. I saw it when I was like 10 and I was like, that's enough of that. The only clowns that aren't scary are rodeo clowns. I think those guys do a good job of being a good ambassador for the clown world. All other clowns, though, very scary. And again, okay, I think the 1970s equivalent of the canvas hanging up in the room is John Wayne Gacy dressed as a clown. Like, you didn't know that guy was up to some crazy stuff. His name was Pogo. He said he was a Polish guy who was always on the go. This man is insane. He's clearly insane. He has like the diamonds on his eyes. Like, what are you doing going within a country mile of that place? Georgetown, Texas. Love the stories. Used to live in Hayes County. Love hearing John Coffey's story. Absolutely. Georgetown, just a little north of here. Actually, we almost included Bass Reeves. Yeah, I think that's Round Rock. But there's supposedly a ghost of Bass Reeves up there that just north of Austin. They say they still see him riding around on rainy days, rainy nights. Big Bear Lake has a weird vibe. Yes, anywhere in California that's got mountains is like, this is a weird vibe. It's beautiful, but it's a weird vibe. Northern California, deep in the redwoods. Yes, that's this. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I mean. Anywhere back in those redwoods, that's the creepiest place in the country to me. And it's beautiful. I've got family up there. It's a wonderful place until it's not. Or back in the day, being a settler. Yeah, Mojo says being a settler anywhere in Comancheria would be the worst place to be in the country, and I have to agree. Like, I live in Central Texas. This is the heart of Comancheria, and my family is a little north of here in the real deep heart of Comancheria. And like the first settlers there, there's no way I would do that. That'd be like moving. I use the analogy a lot, but it'd be like moving to a war-torn area now, like let's say, or the mountains of Pakistan or the border in Syria. It's just so dangerous, and there's no support system at all. And if you get caught, you've watched our show, you know what's going to happen, and they knew what was going to happen. Yeah, I think that I would never move here. And now, where all these terrible things happened, right? It's always a trip to me to drive around here, and it's like, well, that's a coffee shop now, right? Or that's a sandwich place, or whatever. It's Austin, so that's like a stray cat and / bicycle shop, right? Let's see. What was your favorite Halloween outfit growing up? I think mine was being Jason as a kid. Once I found out there was a guy that carried around a chainsaw, I was like, yeah, give me a flannel shirt and a hockey mask and let's do this. See, John Wayne Gacy scoped out my grammar school when I was a kid. It was along a Millions route in Illinois on Route 52. Man, does that ever mess with your self-esteem? Like, why did he pass me up? Just asking. It would kind of get to me. Like, I don't want him to attack me, but why did I get passed up? What's wrong with me? Okay, Mojo says in Pittsburgh through Fort Pitt is a creepy area. And yeah, that's I want to hit more of that with our episodes, because there's a lot of battles with the French and the English and the native tribes there that were just, we talk a lot about Comancheria, and I think sometimes unintentionally undersell the brutality that had happened for centuries before Americans reached Texas, where it was just generations of horrific combat. Let's see. Right. Yeah, that would be a good video. Yeah. We've done a couple. We've done, let's see, the Battle of Lake George. I'll have to, maybe I'll post them in the comments here or in the description. That were really good. I think the deep, dark forests of the Northeast really lend themselves to dramatic storytelling. Aliquippa, Hopewell, Delaware, Black Hawks. Yeah, and the Iroquois, the Algonquin. There was just a plethora of wars that happened for centuries, intertribal wars too. Like it was these tribes would side with the French or the English or the Americans to take out their enemy tribes. Yeah, Algonquin. And I think the Iroquois are still kind of undersold for the powerhouse that they were for centuries. That's yeah, we need to dive more into that with our episodes because that's uh, I think oh, my phone died. Super fascinating era in American history. And like I said, undersold on its brutality. Oh, Space Cowboy says dots are the colored sugar attached to paper. Oh, they come on the paper. Okay, I know what dots are now. Kind of running through the comments. Yeah, we're just hanging out. So if you guys want to talk about anything, throw it in the comments. Kind of just winding down. Let's see. You guys all watch Art Bell? I listen to him like intermittently. It's a great thing to have on in the background. What's your favorite Art Bell episode? I would say mine is man, probably the guy with the Bigfoot Museum in Santa Cruz. I think he believes that Bigfoot are interdimensional beings, so they can shift into this dimension and out into another dimension when they don't want to be seen. That's a whole thing, you know. And I like that because it's inconsequential to me. The dumbs, the deep underground military bases, it's like, well, that could affect my life. But Bigfoot, if he exists, cool. If he doesn't, cool. Me, I don't think he does, but not impossible. I don't think Art Bell believed it either. But a hell of a show. The lizard people on the dark side of the moon. Yeah, absolutely. That and he was one of the first guys to talk to David Icke, right? And this was all just unheard of, if not for Art Bell during the 90s. Like this is all stuff we can get on, YouTube, Reddit, whatever, and find all these uh, rabbit holes, anytime you want. But during the 90s, it was like you had to stay up till like 2 a.m. and hear that Giorgio Moroder song, like dum 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 dum. That would come on. You're like, bro, we are in for it now. And that was the only way you could find out what the hell these people were talking about. Oh, the episode that inspired Heaven's Gate. Yeah. And that was like, I remember seeing that in the 90s where it was like, I kind of thought it was like a Warner Brothers cartoon because you're like, this is how people look in Warner Brothers when they've checked out, right? They have like a blanket over them with their little feet sticking out. And it was like, no, this is real. These people lost their minds, man. Let's see. Bob Lazar, right? He was one of the first people to have Bob Lazar on. The Valley of Nye, absolutely. Art was a DJ for probably 50 years, at least 30, 40 years, and was so talented at running a radio show. I was a DJ for just a little bit. It's incredibly difficult, and there's a real flow that you have to keep. And he's talking to some of the hardest people in the world to keep on a flow, and he's just masterful at it. And he's also very abrupt with callers and even his guests. Like he'll just kind of shrug them off because he's been doing it so long and heard everything and doesn't really have time or patience to mess with them anymore. So he can be very abrupt the way that he talked to people. What's my opinion on Skinwalker Ranch? Oh, I think there's something happening out there. I think there's been something happening out there, and whether that's kind of a demonic force or whether that's could be experiments, right? But or a combination of the two. But I don't want to go. I don't want to visit there, right? I think there's some strange energy happening out there, and whatever it is, I don't want to be around it. What about you, Mojo? What do you think? What does everybody think about Skinwalker Ranch? Mojo says, me neither. Yep. No thanks. Like, why chance it? Like I said about Magnolia. Magnolia is a beautiful place. Seems like a wonderful woman that runs it, a beautiful couple that runs it. I'm just like, man, I got enough problems. Mojo thinks it's interdimensional. Yeah, I'd say something like that. I'm with you. I don't need it. Yeah, I'm telling you, like, I need to go put air in my tires. Matter of fact, my little check engine or my little check air light just came on because it got cold. And it's like, you know what? I got enough of that stuff going on. Last thing I need is some ghost hanging on to me. You never know until you try. But then the problem is when you do try, you do know. And maybe you don't want to know, you know? Let's see. High strangeness in the Southwest. Absolutely. If you've ever seen Arch Studio, it's just like it's his house with this huge, I think there's two huge antennas coming off of it. It was like 50,000 watts or something. It was just broadcasting a long ways for it just being a house. I usually keep fix it flat. That's true, but then like the tire's shot, right? You can't use it anymore after. I think that's what I've heard, right? Could be a lie from the big fix it flat industry. Natives didn't have much technology, but they knew a whole lot about spirits. Yeah, that's true. I think they did have. It depends on the tribe and what they would need the technology for, but some tribes have a wild amount of technology. But yes, no, till Europeans arrived, like no metallurgy to really speak of. Not the I always think it's amazing that you had the Aztecs were able to build what they built without a wheel. That's almost more impressive, if not for like the weird sacrifice stuff. Natives didn't. Some things are best left alone. Bob Newth. That's the comment of the night, man. Exactly. Wasn't it the Kingdom of Nye? Yeah, it was something like that, right? Kingdom of Nye, Valley of Nye. We all get the point. Lots of arts episodes are up on YouTube now too, which are really entertaining. And you'll see you get a lot of the call-ins, which are really good because it's just like sometimes they're just people clearly rambling about nothing. Like they're just telling you that like there's a portal in their backyard and whatever, right? But sometimes you're like, oh, this guy's got a point. Or everybody remember Mel's Hole? For just a hole in the ground, that provided hours of just enthralling radio. If you're not familiar with it, this guy named Mel, he calls in. He's got a place like where in Nevada, Oregon, something like that. And he says, well, there's just a big hole and I can't find the bottom of it. He attached like lifesavers to the bottom of a fishing line and said, well, when it hits the water down there, the lifesavers will dissolve. And he let loose thousands of feet of fishing line on a big open sea fishing reel. And the lifesavers never touched water. And he said, a neighbor's dog jumped into it. Obviously, the dog disappears, right? But then a day later, the dog reappears. And it's like, yeah, well, there's lots of dogs that look alike, but that's very strange. Let's see. The sun dances where they attach their skin to swing around. Yeah, that's crazy. That was something that really, I think, originated on the northern plains. And there were lots of kind of endurance rituals, but tribes would do that kind of as at annual or at strategic parts of the year. And it was a way for them to offer sacrifice to their deities and a way for young men to prove themselves. It's like you would pierce the skin, which is actually like, this is gross to say, but relatively thick. And they would, yeah, if you're not familiar with it, they'd pierce right here and then they'd be like Dolly Parton in it, right? And they'd swing around on that and it would test your endurance and your fortitude. And they would swing and dance and chant like that for days, hours, or even days. And that was a way to like, you can make your reputation there. Let's see. Did the dog at Mel's Hole have lifesavers with him? He did not. He did not reappear with lifesavers. The Sundance was really interesting though, because it kind of worked its way south. It got through the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, to the Kiowa, and the Comanche were always like, oh, that's kind of weird, man. Like we're not going to do that. And as things got worse and worse, and into the 1860s and 70s for the Comanche, eventually they were like, all right, we'll give it a shot. If you listen to or watch our second Battle of Adobe Walls video, we talk about that, how the Comanche were like, things are bad, we got to try something. And so they try these sun dances that they learned from the Kiowa, and Isatai, this like con man, medicine man who told him he could like jump up and touch the sky and was invincible to bullets and all this stuff. He's out there like directing it like a middle school teacher directing a play where no one knows what they're doing because they don't really know how to do a sun dance, right? So they're out there piercing themselves and swinging around, and Isatai, he's not piercing himself and he's not swinging around, but he's going like, all right, boys, like this is what we need to do, and then we're going to take back our land. And like it didn't work for them, it didn't work for Isatai. Everyone's kind of pissed off at Isatai from there on out. It was a great episode. Not to pat ourselves on the back, but a good episode, let's say, worth watching. And if you look at pictures of Isatai, he looks like a con man. He's just like, but like, I don't buy anything you're selling. But he convinced them to attack adobe walls, and he was also like painted completely yellow, and he was naked and completely painted yellow, which I think is an odd look. I don't see why that part was necessary. It seems like, okay, we'll attack. We'll do all this stuff. Yeah, no, we should attack. We got to defend our lands. You're right, Isatai. Let's go with that. And then he shows up naked and painted yellow. It's like, well, we don't have to do this part though, right? Like, why are you naked and painted yellow? Sounds like an old con man rainmaker. Yeah, except he couldn't make rain. Yes, everything else though, absolutely. Let's see. All right. Just scrolling through our comments here. Yo, thank you guys for coming in and chatting. It's always fun hanging out with everybody. Just rolling through these. Mojo says George Knapp. Yeah, George took over for Art. Right, Art had left Coast to Coast and started the Art Bell Show, which was great. There's a bunch of stuff on that too. That's right, George Knapp, right? No, it's George Norrie I'm thinking of. Either way, his replacement was okay. Contentious guy. Some people love him, some people don't. But I don't know. Just never liked George Norrie. Well, who's George Knapp though? See, the problem with live streams when you can't think of something, you're in front of everybody. Let me know in the chat. Who's George Knapp? I'm gonna look stupid, but there's a first time for everything, you know. Let's scroll through the rest of the chat here. Have I visited Palo Duro Canyon and Caprock Canyon? I have not, but I have plans to. I've driven by, I've seen Palo Duro. I drove through Lampasas and up through Amarillo, and there's nothing else to look at out there. It's beautiful. It's like Texas's Grand Canyon, but I live in Austin, and it is, I don't know, 8 hours away. In Texas, it's just like, there's like, yeah, it's in the same state, but you got to go 12 hours that way, and you'll be there. Let's see. Oh, George Knapp. Oh, the reporter. Is that the guy for the San Jose Times? Mojo? Is that the same guy who supposedly self-deleted but shot himself twice? Is that who I'm thinking of? You gotta let me know. I got too many names floating around in my head right now. Oh, he broke Bob Lazar. Okay. Yes, I know what you're talking about. He's the first guy that brought Bob Lazar out. Bob Lazar, like, listen, I'm not an alien guy, but Bob Lazar has got some compelling stuff. Like, he's an interesting guy to listen to. I still don't believe, right? There could be something, but I mean, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm just not maybe because I grew up out in the country, and it's like you just had to convince yourself, like, nah, there's nothing out there. I got to take the trash out. It's dark. Let's see. Yeah, he was the outlet for Bob, right? Let's see. Element 115. I don't know that. All for One says I saw a UFO in Phoenix. Was that the 1990? Did you see the 1997 like mass appearance in Phoenix? There's a lot of UFOs in Phoenix, which I mean, like, kind of makes sense. I could see, we're out in the desert. He spoke on it and then became introduced to periodic table. I'm gonna have to look that up. And who is the guy for the San Jose Times? The Gary something, right? That broke all these conspiracies and then mysteriously self-deleted. Now I got these names all mixed up in my head. Let's see. Got a lot of UFO talk for a history podcast. A lot of Bigfoot talk, right? Gary Webb was the guy for the San Jose News. That's right. Yeah, did you see all for one, did you see oh, you didn't see the 1997 mass sighting. That's another one where it's like, I don't know what that was. Remember all the drones they had a couple months ago? And we still don't know what that was. I'll be honest with you, it doesn't keep me up at night, but maybe it should. Space Cowboy says, when I was a kid, we had a sumo pump in the basement. We called it the water hole. What's a sumo pump? It's gonna be that's gonna be one of those questions where I look stupid, right? Space Cowboy says he had nightmares about it. I don't blame you. Let's see. I'm just scrolling through the chat, trying to see if anybody has any good costumes that they've put on. Let me know what your costume is today. I'll be honest with you. If you're an adult and you don't have kids and you're wearing a costume, we're going to have to talk. Element 115 is a synthetic, highly radioactive element with atomic number 115. It was first synthesized in 2003, Mojo says. Well, Mojo, I'm going to look that up. Oh, a sump pump. Okay, yeah, my bad, man. Clearly not the brightest knife in the drawer. Pet Detectives checking out. Thank you so much. It was entertaining. Thank you, Pet Detectives. And if you haven't checked out Pet Detectives channel, the Pet Detectives Adventure, if you have kids, a fantastic channel, really entertaining, great artwork and great storytelling. I watch it and I don't even have kids. It's just entertaining. What was your favorite costume? Oh yeah, I was Jason. I was a cowboy too. I was always a cowboy. My dad and grandpa were actual cowboys, so it was fun to dress up. And we always had the costume stuff on hand. Couple cars on the way home from war. Pennsylvania Plowboy says he saw a couple people in cars on the way home from work wearing costumes. I'm calling the cops. If I see that and there's no kids in the car, I'm calling the cops. I pay taxes. I know what my money goes towards. I'm paying these people to come out and enforce the law. And as far as I know, adults wearing costumes is against the law. Mojo, checking out, man. Have a good night. Thanks for coming. Thanks for giving me something to look up. And you're probably wondering, like, why does this guy know so much about this stuff? Because I'm a history writer. But really, you have to have stuff on in the background I can't listen to music while I'm working. So a lot of times I've had Art Bell on in the background. All right. I'm going to give this chat one more scroll through. And then we'll let everybody go have a nice Halloween. All right. Any more questions before we check out of here? All right, man. Thank you all so much for coming and hanging out. Let's see, what we have coming up this week. Next, we have one on the Cheyenne. I have to think this through because there's several we're working on, which is tough. Like I have to write about, sometimes I get them mixed up and it's like, am I writing about Davy Crockett or the Comanche right now? But yeah, let's see. One on Bigfoot Wallace coming up. One on the Mountain Men and the Blackfoot coming up. I believe either tomorrow or Sunday. So stay tuned for that one. We've got one on the Cheyenne and a bunch of other stuff coming up. So we're going to have a ton of stuff coming up in the next 2 months here. So stay tuned for that. Got a lot more live streams coming. If you have any topic you'd like us to live stream on, hit us up in the comments. And let's see, anything else? And a bunch of shorts and a bunch of content. We are dumping it all in the pipeline right now. So stay tuned. We're going to have a bunch of cool stuff coming your way. I am going to watch Helen Keller versus the Night Wolves with the rest of my nights. I hope you all have a wonderful, safe Halloween. Thank you all again for tuning in, and we will see you. I'll see you tomorrow, another live stream on Saturday night. So we'll see you all tomorrow. God bless. Have a good night. Bye-bye.